Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on this week with peak music, looking at some of the best tracks that a band has ever produced. Today we're going to be checking out the song Anchor from Thank You Scientist. This comes off of their 2019 Terraformer album. Looks like it's almost towards the end of the album. Doesn't quite wrap it up, but should be seeing more of an emotional peak on this one. Let's dive in, see what's going on with Anchor.
Faster we are sinking, still we take our time. Backwards way of thinking, no reason, no rhyme. Silence screams don't.
So I was feeling it in a slow 4. 1, 2. But with that faster movements coming into the section, kind of feel this faster 3.
Without change, more of the same. Stop closing open doors.
A lot of interesting control of release here. A lot of build up into lesser than. Almost like a consistent. What's the word I'm wanting?
Cancel my tomorrow. Got no chance. Finding comfort in denial. Get used to the mess. I can't bear to look, though I'm wanting to. Watch me sink my hooks.
Really staccato ideas, really short notes, and then these long legato string ideas pop in around it. Finally, after 2.5 minutes, we finally have an explosive element after a build-up. This also feels more bright, driving. The layers aren't building something moody, they're building something driving and forward momentum. A little call and response there. That's fun.
Same old story, same old ball and chain.
All this open space, bringing the large sound back. Ooh, that drum part.
Thinking I'm insane. Forget the way you were.
the trumpet before this part having a rising, escalating idea of brightness and positivity before coming into this, which I mentioned is like the brightest part of the song. So like a 6-beat idea there, a 6/8, with a cymbal hit on 2, 4, and 6. That was interesting. Oh, yeah.
Caught in the wave, ride it all the way down. Don't just stand there lifeless. It's all just a game. Caught in the wave, ride it all the way down. Don't just stand there lifeless. It's all a game. It's all just a game. All a game.
Very. Such a sharp shift with no lead up. It just became that. Wow.
Faster we are sinking, still we take our time. It's backwards.
That's the second water-based word I've heard.
No reason.
Ooh. We had a riding the wave just a little bit ago, and then sinking there,
I'm insane.
and it is called Anchor.
Forget the way you were.
There's that trumpet line. I love that.
Sorry,
Pulling the song into this brighter chorus.
I swear this time I'm getting back to good. Whoa, when will I wake up? Will I ever learn? Same old story, same old ball and chain. Whoa,
Very haunting here. Okay. So we're left hanging there. It could have had a nice, like, sultry resolution to that. It didn't have to be totally, fully resolved. And instead, they just allow that harmonic instability to hang in the air. Hmm. Which I think I get. I kind of want to discuss this right here, right now, while it's all fresh in my mind, this ending, but I think my interpretation of this ending really is hingent on understanding my interpretation of the rest of the song. So I think we're going to have to start elsewhere. This track does a lot of stuff. It's got highs, it's got lows, it's got heavier sections, lighter sections, and more energetic positive ones, more atmospheric heavy ones. It explores darkness in a few different ways, only explores positivity in two. I think that's an interesting division there. We do also have some sort of water thing cropping up in parts of it, at least. Within like a 1 minute span, I heard Ride the Wave and Sinking Down, and the song's called Anchor. I don't know how to work all of that into anything else yet. That's probably going to come into focus once we look at the lyrics, but it is something that I kind of want to keep on my mind because the quintessential time signature for water based kind of music is 3/4, which this song sits in a lot. It's another element that kind of leads towards a watery feel to it. These are all things that kind of sit on my mind regarding the track. The big overarching concepts, the general flow, pacing, the emotional resonance, little tidbits that might lead to a better understanding of things. This song has my mind constantly going. And while I've only heard a handful of Thank You Scientist songs, I've got to agree, this might be peak for them for me as well. There's just so many good moments in here. So many times it put a smile on my face, a little cheeky decision that doesn't really pull me out of the song too much, but is a fun little nod to things. There's the idea at the end. What was it? It was that final rhythm, and something about it just caught me off guard. Like I was not expecting him to go there. What was it about that rhythm too? It was the final rhythm right before the chord progression that took us into that suspended finale. Something about that rhythm. I don't know what it was. It cracked me up though. So many great ideas in here that are just like, oh, you went there, you did that. Yeah, that takes guts, and you're pulling it off. Like I have a lot of praise for this song, and I don't think I have a lot of criticism for it. That's a pretty good indication it's going to be peak for me as well. Let's get into some nitty gritty though. The opening of the track has several ups and downs to it. All of it a bit more atmospheric, a bit gloomier at times, definitely moody. We don't have anything here that is upbeat, that's energetic, that's driving riffage. It's all texture based, really. A lot of rhythmic ideas, sure, it's not like we just have long held out notes, but it is focusing on crafting an atmosphere, one of sort of dreariness. It's a weight, it's an anchor holding something down. I don't know how far I'm going to be able to take that metaphor, but it just clicked with me right there. I was like, oh yeah, anchor, that kind of works. Again, probably something that'll make more sense when we hit the lyrics. But we have several moments where we have rising layers, rising harmonic energy, where the chord progression is leading towards a lot of tension and we're expecting a resolution to that. We have sections where we have a massive crescendo, a rise of volume that we expect to explode into a big idea. And after every single one of these, we don't get that release. It's being withheld from us. We're left in a state of disappointment, I would say, honestly. You keep building me up, and then you let me fall. You don't raise me up to that next plateau. I'm just left there. As I mentioned, it wasn't until like 2.5 minutes in when we exploded into that first chorus and we finally had a strong, next idea after a rise, after a build-up. I think that was a volume build-up, but it was also a layer build-up. That was the first time that we heard that really great trumpet line. Just a couple of notes of rising energy, and then you take those same notes and you bring it up like, I think it was a third or so, and I think they altered the top note so it had stronger resolution to it. And it just felt like a more positive build up from where we were. So we had the element of build up, and then we have like a positive, victorious element of build up. A little bit of darkness still in there. That's the tension that's needed to resolve at the first beat of this big chorus, where we have our emotional change. This whole chorus massively goes in a different direction than the first 2.5 minutes of this track. And like I said, it does so by providing this burst of energy that at least I was expecting for a majority of these build-ups that we just didn't get. This chorus comes through very bouncy, very catchy. As I mentioned during the intro, you can count it out as like a slow 4/4, a 4-beat idea at a slower tempo. But there were a couple of places in there where it focused on grouping each of those beats into 3. Da 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 da. And that has a bit more energy to it. This was sort of an illusion, though. An illusion, I think, maybe foreshadowing to what we would see in a place like the chorus, but also a way of sort of showcasing what the song could be pointing towards. An energy that the song wants to get to, but can't for whatever reason. At this chorus, not only do we have this harmonic shift from that gloomier sound to a brighter one, but we also have this rhythmic movement. I don't necessarily think we've moved from a slower 4/4 to that faster 3. No, it is in 3, isn't it? The chorus is in 3. So we don't have a tempo increase. We're just breaking up each of those original 1 beats into 3, which is, in a sense, tripling the speed of the song, or at least the time feel of the song. And when you pair that with the brighter instruments, the brighter timbres, and the brighter harmonic palette, this is a more energetic, happy, joyful part of the song. The vocals even feel more expressive, where they were often sort of muted harmonically. Anytime that they moved through a series of notes, we would land on tension at the end, almost as if it wanted to go towards a more positive release to wrap up the melodic phrase, and instead landed on something a bit confused, I think is a good word for it. The melody pointing towards a more harmonious ending and ending in a more ambiguous one. And so here we finally have that bright, powerful melody writing. For half of it, at least, while the rest of the instrumentation tends to still focus on a brighter, more joyous sound, the melody for the vocals in the back half of the chorus kind of approaches a bit more of that gloomier, ambiguous feeling, where there's more tension present than anything else. It's subversive in a way, but it does allow a little bit of movement, some foreshadowing of where we're going, because after every chorus we bring the energy back down. I firmly believe the vocals are what helps carry the song into those moments, sort of like how the trumpet helps carry us into the chorus. It brings some cohesion, and it allows these wild jumps from gloomier ideas to brighter ones and back to gloomy ones, not to feel as jarring as they could be, though there is a jarring element to them. We don't take time to smoothly transition between them. It's not like we have a full bar or maybe even two bars to act as a crossfade or a fade into, or just to have, I don't know, like 8 chords as we slowly progress from something brighter into something more mixed, into something more gloomy. We don't have any of this fluidity of transition. It's, this is the last bar of the chorus. It's bright and happy, although the vocals are a little dimmer. And then this next bar is the next verse. It's the bridge. It's whatever's next. And it is a bit gloomier. We do have this very harsh transition back to back, but there are elements that soften it up just a tad. Now, as I mentioned, that's sort of the primary bright spot of the song. I do think we engage a little bit in the middle of the song somewhere, maybe like 5-6 minutes in, with another brighter section in one of the bridges. This is a long song. There's a lot of sections to it, and honestly, I don't have a map of the structure clearly laid out in my head. It kind of turned into a maze at some point in it. After I realized what the chorus was, everything that wasn't a chorus was kind of just labeled as that. It's not a chorus, it's something else. Even the opening, I think we had 2 verses there, but then we would have had post verses or maybe pre-choruses that just never went into choruses. I'm not sure how to structure out that, not on a first listen anyways. It would require me, well, another listen or two, but sheet music would help as well, to try to find patterns and see how I might want to divide up those patterns into different sections. Regardless, many of the sections that aren't the chorus are heavier. And as we come out of that first chorus, we do go back to something a bit gloomier. We return back to a texture-based, atmospheric-based idea. I think we do another chorus, and then we enter into the first bridge, maybe the first section of a bridge. I like this moment. We kind of tried to find a midpoint between the high and the low of this song, that atmospheric, heavy gloominess with the brighter, more joyous elements, the explosive energy. And in doing so, we end up writing music that feels versatile. We're going to bring a lot of ideas together, where some instruments are going to have brighter ideas, other instruments going to have gloomier ideas, and we're going to look at pairing some more legato playing, which is very soft transitions between notes, allowing for more fluid movement of tones, against more jarring rhythms. This is where we begin to see a stronger emphasis on what I'm going to call the djenty guitar playing, where the guitarist plays a series of chords, breaking up each chord into a series of rhythms, heavily syncopated. So it's not just like quarter notes, dot, 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 dot. Each note or each strum of the chord is going to be a different note length, and it creates something with a jagged rhythmic element to it. Something that ends up feeling quite groovy to my ears, but for some might be difficult to follow. It's interesting to pair these two ideas together. We get something that feels like a measured response to the peaks and valleys of the first half of the song, but it also feels in contention with itself. It doesn't feel like it's necessarily something that is viable long term. There's too much clashing going on with the music, even though I think that there are parts that work rather well. I had mentioned at one point I thought there was a violin melody that was sitting above one of these more jagged guitar rhythms. I thought that worked beautifully. I loved the ways that they complemented each other, but this was an isolated experience. For the most part, bringing these two sides of the music together was like oil and water. Yeah, you can mix them, but they're always going to be separated. They're just in the same jar now. And that's kind of what happens here. The song, I feel like, gets even darker here, where the heavier guitar riffs become even heavier, both in timbre. I think the literal guitar tones become meatier, while never really hitting like a metallic size and tone. They're definitely closer to that hard rock, maybe even a light heavy metal guitar tone. Not heavy metal, a light metal guitar tone. More so than sort of that prog rock sound they had at the beginning that worked with more clearer tones, less compression and less distortion, and they started to push into that darker bite of a sound. And you can hear the separation, almost as if bringing these two ideas together only caused them to spike further into their sides of the spectrum. It really feels like a song that begins to tear itself apart until we stop forcing them to be together. We enter into a bit of a moodier idea. This might have been a third verse, I'm not sure. Then we have the build up into the chorus, and this is brighter again. And we have now separated these two ideas out, and they are less, I don't know, what would the term be? They're just lesser of each of their extremes. Less extreme, there we go, than what we saw in the bridge. That was really, I think, one of the most tensest parts of the track, is hearing this oil and water just opposite sides and kind of solidifying their ideas of, well, I'm the dark side, I'm going to become darker to combat this brightness that's here. And the brightness sort of doing the same thing. There are some really cool ideas in here. The melodies in this bridge I thought were beautiful. The guitar solo was great narratively. Interestingly, more shreddy than I tend to like in my guitar solos, but I think narratively it works. It feels like a flustered expression of chaos, rage, pain even. It's just a lot of a lot, and I feel like it's mixed a bit with confusion, which we have heard a couple of times on this track. It's melodically it goes where it wants to go. It's not like the line itself is confused. It's not a solo that to me feels like it doesn't know what it's attempting to portray. This is actually a very well measured, well composed melody that feels like it's full of confused pain. And that's very different. Usually, when I talk about a melody being confused or feeling confused, it's that the melody itself doesn't really fit with the music, but this does. It just conveys a sense of confusion. And I really like that. It works well here. And like I said, the whole song is sort of reaching these more polarized ideas anyways. So bringing this in, I think just it expands on and focuses on some of these core feelings that are at the heart of this track. And so that takes us to the ending. A brand new rhythm that got me to chuckle real quick. Darker chord progression than previously that attempts to resolve itself, pushes towards that full resolution. Like I said, they could have gone for something a bit smoky and sultry and sort of had a more ambiguous but resolved chord to end on. They could have also just gone into like a very bright, fully resolved idea too if they wanted to. That final chord that was played could have led to a couple of different places depending on what kind of emotion they were going for, and they chose not to resolve it at all. It just hangs there suspended. Whatever battle was going on in this song isn't over. And that's why I wanted to go through all the other parts to kind of explore how this song is that ends with itself before I talk about how the song ends without a true ending. I think that works really well. I'm usually not a fan of cliffhanger endings like that, to just kind of leave me there. And truly, I probably showed it with my face. I tend to wear this on my sleeve pretty often. I don't like them because they leave me in a state of suspense. Much like watching a good film or an episode, and then at the end it says to be continued. You're like, no, I need this finale now. I am, tense. I'm anxious. You've set me up for this big moment, and I'm not getting that immediate satisfaction of release of tension. That's what music does to me too when it does stuff like that. Like, I've been built up. I'm ready for this release at the end, and then yeah, I just don't get it. I'm just left there hanging. But there's times like this where even though the experience of it, I think, is unpleasurable, the artistic and thematic and narrative reasons behind it work. And I think that my reaction to the ending is what was expected. And despite it being a negative feeling for me, I'm glad they went with that direction. Assuming that any of this is right at all. I mean, it is still my read of the music, but it might not have been their intention at all. So, with all that said, let's dive into some lyrics and see if there is anything in here about a power struggle between two um, and polarization of ideals or something like that. I don't know. A bit of a division between two is what I'm looking for. Well, there's not really a duality in the track, at least not on the surface, but there is. We'll get to it in a second. The primary element of this song appears to be somebody who feels they feel like they have a lack of willpower at times, that they're constantly sinking, they have a tough time getting out of whatever they're sinking into. They feel defeated by life in general. And through that feeling of defeat, they also feel ostracized from society. At one point, saying, I've been thinking that I'm actually insane. I forgot the way that I was. The beginning says, faster, we are sinking, still we take our time. It's a backwards way of thinking with no reason and no rhyme. Even though we sink, we don't even try. The punishment doesn't fit the crime. I like that line though. He says, we're sinking faster, but we still take our time. We're not treating this with the urgency that it needs. If I had to guess, I'd say that the song is about mental health and maybe even dwindling mental health in the narrator's psyche, the way that they're approaching the world. Verse 2, I like this. This seems to crop up often in people who suffer from depression, but it's something I don't see too often in songs about depressed people. It says, cancel my tomorrow. I like that line. A lot of people who suffer from depression, and I'd say even generally introverts in general, but particularly introverts who also suffer from depression, find it really easy to cancel engagements with friends and family. You had plans and you're just going to flake out on them today. There's also the second reading of this, cancel my tomorrow. The next day won't come at all. I think there's a small allusion to suicide there, but without the rest of this track really going in that direction, I'd like to read it in the lighter framing of that. Let's see. The chorus. We're going to get to the chorus later. It's a bit of a different beast lyrically, and I think the music fits that sort of, but I'm not 100% sure how all of that works together. Verse 3 simply states that the will forever decays. It's slipping away, and it could be permanent. Yeah, I have less willpower to do things every day. It's harder to get out of bed. It's harder to, get to work, get to the library, get to the park, engage in my pastimes, my hobbies. Everything just requires a little more work than it did yesterday. There's a fear it will be permanent. One day I might not even want to get out of bed. The rest of the song is mostly a repetition of many of these stanzas that we've just gone through. It kind of surprised me given how much the vocals were present in the song in general, how little unique lines there were. Part of that I think works well with the idea of dealing with depression and sort of dwindling mental health in general. It's all a cycle, and it builds on itself. Just as that last line said, my will decays daily, slips away further every day. The song builds on itself. What was easier yesterday is harder today, even though nothing's changed. Well, nothing physical, at least. The bridge says, caught in the wave, I'll ride it all the way down. This idea of being dragged down and not even fighting it anymore. You're just going to ride the riptide. And this takes us to the chorus. It says, sorry, I can't take it anymore. I swear this time I'm getting back to good. When will I wake up? When will I learn? The same old story, same old ball and chain. The annotation for this says that this is an internalization of words that might have been expressed by people around the narrator. That it's sort of all in your head. You can just not be depressed. Just remember the good times of life. And, just when you feel like you can't do anything, just move your legs out of bed. Stand on them. Take a step, Why are you depressed? Just do things. That doesn't work, right? But he says, I swear this time I'm getting back to good. I can kind of see this perspective that people just tell him you can just be better, and there's a part of him, an internal voice that honestly probably makes things worse by telling him you could just do this. Just get better, just be better, and then you're done with all this. And then they still can't because their willpower is dwindling and they feel even worse now. The idea of when will I wake up, when will I learn, kind of leans into that as well. But I keep bringing this back to the music. It's bright, it's energetic. I don't know, maybe this is just supposed to be a representation of other people's words who don't deal with depression or have mental health and problems in the same way that the narrator does. And the music is supposed to reflect this other perspective of people who don't understand the gloom that exists on the periphery of this narrator's life, which is what the music represents in the rest of the song. That would be the only way I think I can bring all of this together. Otherwise, the chorus feels a bit odd to me. But then even when it comes to, okay. So it says it's the same old story, same old ball and chain. The ball and chain part, I'm going to disregard. I think it just kind of goes along with the words. I don't think that it actually means something positive to this section. But the idea of the same old story just, to me, represents the idea that every person who has advice for him says the exact same thing, and none of that works. And so maybe that does mean that the first half of the chorus is just other people repeating that to him and him sort of internalizing it and having this part of him that repeats it back to him. And again, just makes things worse. So maybe that's also why the vocals dip down a bit in the chorus and return back to a bit more of that ambiguous, moody element while the music still stays positive, because this is the part where he's saying all that stuff I just said. Yeah, it doesn't work. I hear that all the time. This is more of his internal voice, what he knows coming back out. The music hasn't changed yet, but his vocal delivery has, the melody of the vocals has, and that could indicate a shift in perspective. Yeah. I kind of want to listen to it again now, knowing that it's about mental health in general, somebody suffering from depression. I kind of see how more of the musical ideas fit that. Because, there's a lot in here. This is a very dense track. There's a lot of details that I forgot about, never even got a chance to talk about in the analysis, that probably work very well now that I know what's going on and that I have a full listen at least, and I can kind of not listen as much to the surface level stuff since I have a general idea of how the song operates, and listen for those details that kind of sit on the periphery a bit more, and how some of that might work into the themes of the song. Yeah, that was good. The music was. I give myself a pat on the back for the analysis too, but the music was good. That's what I was talking about there. It isn't often we finish a track and I'm like, okay, I gotta listen to that one again on my own, because That's right up my alley. Plus, I didn't even talk about all the harmonization that happened in here. I mean, so many sections where the violin and guitar are doing a duet of sorts, the trumpet and violin, like, totally forgot about all that till right now. It's just, it's good. It's good. These are my thoughts. Thank you, scientist Anchor. What'd you think of this? Anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own thoughts, opinions, perspective on this. You want to put your own opinion in the comments? Go for it. Any other thoughts you have, toss all that stuff down there. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. I'm about to sneeze. I can feel my eyes watering. I think it's passing now. Yeah, it takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.